Welcome to my channel, where every story is a twist that will make you watch it all the way to the end. Today, I promise you will be both angry and elated. Just a cold call. I'm divorced. I've sold the apartment has sparked a spectacular counterattack. When a wife who seemed abandoned secretly took full control of the law, exposed the illegal house sale, and kicked the traitor and the mistress out of her life. In just 1 to 2 moves, you will see why a transfer of the land title and a few legal letters are enough to turn the schemer into a penniless person. Will he still have a way out when the fraudulent transaction is invalidated and his honor is restored? If you love such cold and satisfying legal retaliations, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next eye-catching, ear-catching stories. The conference room buzzed like a hive, people packing up their papers and trading end-of-meeting pleasantries. White lights glared off the glass tabletop, sketching ripples like a lake. The air conditioner hummed softly, steadily. My phone vibrated, the screen lighting up. Tyler. I smiled on reflex, ready for the usual questions. How's the trip? When are you back? But a bad feeling slid down my spine. I murmured an excuse, slipped past the row of chairs with my notebook in my arm, pushed the door, and stepped into the long hallway where the green carpet quietly swallowed footsteps. I raised the phone to my ear. Hello. Tyler's voice came through, cold and slick as steel. I want a divorce. He paused a beat, like he was waiting for the sound of something collapsing on my end. And I've sold the apartment. Figure out where you're going to live. Enjoy that. For a moment my lungs forgot how to pull in air. It wasn't the words so much as the tone, the dry, triumphant glee hanging at the end of the sentence, like a small, rude laugh in a quiet night. I leaned my shoulder against the wall, the cool paint seeping through my shirt. You sold the apartment? I asked slowly, keeping my voice even, as if I were double-checking a number on a spreadsheet. Yeah, he said with a short, contempt-edged laugh. Nicole and I need the money to start our life. She deserves better than that little matchbox we're in. Anyway, you can find someplace cheap. Nicole. The name pricked my eardrum like a needle. I'd suspected. Late nights, last-minute business trips, calls that cut off halfway, and the faint trace of an unfamiliar perfume on the collar of his white shirts. But hearing him say her name with such brazen ease, as if I were the intruder in their romance, lit a quiet flame in my chest. Sounds great, I said, voice smooth as glass. In my head a block of ice began to form, sharp, orderly, cold. I didn't give him the pleasure of hearing me break. The hallway was empty. Only the AC breathing steadily and the licorice scent of the air freshener. Inside the room people laughed, human laughter, ordinary, but it felt far away. Tyler kept going, explaining what a new future looked like, a fresh start, a new freedom. Words as glossy as a magazine cover. I listened and didn't listen. A fast-forward reel of memories flickered. 6 years together, moving days, the snake plant I'd set carefully on the windowsill. That autumn afternoon we argued about curtain colors. His hand on my shoulder the night we celebrated my raise. I had believed that was a partnership. I had believed. Are you done? I cut in gently. I still have a meeting. Silence on his end for a second, like he hadn't expected me not to cry. You really have nothing to say? I'm saying, I'm busy. I held the phone away, ended the call with a tap, and watched the screen go dark like a door closing. My head rang with a single etched clear chime. Irritating but bracing. I stood there another moment, feeling the floor steady under my heels. One deep breath. I walked back into the conference room. Amelia, you okay? Tom, my teammate, looked up, his worried eyes scanning my face like a QR code. I'm fine, I said with a smile, took my seat, opened my notebook, set my pen at the page's edge as if no storm had just blown through. For the rest of the wrap-up, I nodded at the right moments and slipped in the right comments. I listened and took notes, but under it all my mind ran a different list. Check the loan documents, search bank emails, confirm title, call Chloe. Chloe. The name rose like an anchor. When people started to scatter, I gathered my materials, said a few goodbyes, and headed straight for the elevators. The cabin mirror gave me back my reflection, powder a shade faded, a look both strange and familiar. Strange for the chill in it, familiar for the resolve I'd used to get through the toughest negotiations. Back at the hotel room, I pulled the curtains and let the late light pour a long stripe across the carpet. I set the phone on the table and looked at it like a witness. My pulse was evening out. I slipped off my heels, poured a glass of water, and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence in the room moved like cool water. I called Chloe. She picked up almost immediately, her voice clear and direct. "You still at the conference?" "Yeah. And I need you." I told her detail by detail. The call, his tone, the way he spit out those lines like trash, the word Nicole dropping between us like an oil slick. I was calm as if I were presenting, but my left hand was unconsciously worrying the edge of the sheet. "He sold the apartment?" Chloe repeated, letting out a laugh that wasn't amused at all. "Does Tyler understand he can't do that without your consent? Maybe he thinks I'm still naive." I reached for my travel folio and slid out a scan I'd saved. The assignment acknowledgement, the refinance documents. "We refinanced earlier this year, remember? Good rate." I moved the title into my name only. He signed without reading. On the other end, I heard her pen tap the desk. Chloe's habit when she's connecting dots. Good. Then here's the story. He has no authority to sell. Any contract he signed is void for lack of authority. If a deposit changed hands, the buyer can sue him for misrepresentation. And we'll send a formal letter demanding he cease any interference with your rights. Can we put the word fraud on the table? I asked, unable to hide the quick, cool lift of satisfaction in my breath. We can, if we want to increase pressure. But the smart strategy is preserve evidence, proactively contact the buyer to verify the transaction status, and prevent anything from being recorded. Send me copies of everything. Proof of title, bank correspondence, anything tied to the refinance. Oh, and change the passwords on any shared accounts if you still have them. I've got two-factor on and I've locked down the passwords, I said, opening my laptop. The spare apartment key is stashed elsewhere. I'll send the files tonight. Don't text Tyler again, Chloe said, voice like a blade. Let me speak in legal letters. If he calls and threatens you, record it. If he shows up at the apartment, your apartment, call building management. I'll send them notice first thing tomorrow. I closed my eyes, listening to my fingers clatter over the keys. Thanks, Chloe. Of course. I know how you are. You don't fold. She paused a beat. But let me say this anyway. You're allowed to be sad. Later, I said. Right now I need to keep him from doing more damage. Fair. I'll send you a checklist. Upload the files and then call it a night. Don't reply to anything from him. Tomorrow morning, I'll handle the buyer. We hung up. I opened email and created a new folder. Tyler Legal. I uploaded the scans, loan agreement, the title transfer addendum, the notary's confirmation letter. The PDFs lined up, neat and reassuring like bricks. For a moment the hotel room became a little war office, where everything that was mine, evidence, memories, rights, was summoned and put in its place. A text flashed from Tyler. Told you already. Don't make this hard. We're adults. Another. Don't think you're getting anything else from me. I've given up enough. I looked at those flavorless words the way you look at a cheap knockoff painting. I set my phone face down. The urge to scream rose and then receded like a wise wave. I let it go, leaving only the salty foam of clarity. I turned the lights off early. The city below glowed warm as a coal bed. Window squares blinking on and off like chessboard tiles. I lay still, staring at the paneled ceiling, listening to a far-off siren. I thought about the first time we toured the apartment. The small kitchen, the balcony overlooking the old oak, me saying, "Let's live here." With a very simple joy. Tyler kissed my forehead and said, "Okay, my queen." I had thought that title was a crown. Turns out it was cheap costume jewelry. The next morning, the hotel coffee tasted more bitter than usual. I sat by the window with my laptop and read Chloe's emails, a template letter to the buyer, a notice to building management, sentences firm as a steel fence. Ms. Amelia is the sole owner. Any purchase agreements executed unilaterally by Mr. Tyler are without effect. Cease and desist from any further interference. I read, nodded, and sent the documents along. Chloe texted. Spoke with the buyer. They're shocked and pretty angry at Tyler. We'll cooperate. I've scheduled the formal warning to Tyler via email and certified mail. Don't open the door for him unless I or building management is there. I replied okay, then leaned back and ran a finger along the cup's rim. The pain had lost its burn. It hadn't disappeared. It had settled into a cold, Heavy stone at the base of my stomach, weight that helped me stand. You called me last night and didn't tell me a thing? Lauren texted my best friend, who shared half my lazy college breakfasts. Sorry. Yesterday was a lot, I wrote back. Tyler called. Said divorce and that he sold the apartment. The screen lit up immediately. Calling. Lauren. Her voice came in like a spray of water. Excuse me? Sold? What does he think he is, a king? Are you okay? I'm okay. Chloe's handling it. Title's in my name. He can't sell anything except his pride. Lauren let out a little laugh, joyless but still a laugh. Want me to fly over and punch his smug jaw? Later. Right now, punching his bank account will be more effective. Done. Honestly, I'm proud of you. Her voice softened. When are you back? This afternoon. I might swing by the apartment tonight. Want to come with me? In case I need a witness. Witness and wily house manager, she said, brighter now. Call me when you land. I ended the conference day with a few handshakes, some congratulations for a smooth presentation, and one group photo where I smiled just enough. On the way to the airport, the city suddenly had details I'd never really seen. Bougainvillea creeping up a concrete wall, a street vendor pushing a cart piled with oranges, a torn billboard corner exposing older paint beneath like a strip of history. Everything was absurdly normal while a corner of my life was snapping off. I smiled at the irony. The world never changes its pace for one person's tragedy. On the plane, once the seatbelt clicked, I pulled out my notebook and made a list. Objectives: protect the apartment, block any financial shenanigans, proceed with a clean divorce, no emotional dialogue. Actions: 1. Change the lock if needed. 2. Notify building management about Title III check mail. 4. Separate fragile personal items. 5. Prep an emergency bag with documents, hard drive, savings book. 6. Don't be alone if there's a risk Tyler shows up. 7. Route all contact through the attorney. I finished, then added last month's credit card statements. I opened my laptop and downloaded the PDFs. Tyler's charges unspooled like a breadcrumb trail. The new restaurant, a one-night Sunday hotel, a little jewelry store on the old street. Does Nicole like silver or gold? The question rose in my mind and evaporated like steam. I closed the notebook, tilted my head to the window and watched the thick wool of clouds below. I remembered a long-ago conversation, winter night on the sofa, talking about the future. I want a kitchen with green cabinets, Tyler said, eyes bright like a kid's. And a spot for my jersey collection. I laughed and said I wanted a threshold for a lavender pot. We wrote a list on a sticky stuck to the fridge. Green kitchen jerseys, lavender small dog. The apartment ended up with no green cabinets and no dog. Just a snake plant still patiently breathing. As we descended, the city reappeared as rivers of light. I took the phone out of airplane mode and saw Chloe's email. Buyer confirmed. It was only an earnest money deposit, wired to Tyler's personal account, no escrow. They want it back. I've asked them to deal directly with me. Formal notice to Tyler sent. Another email, the one to building management, C and me. Please note all communications regarding the apartment should be with Ms. Amelia, the sole owner. Any auxiliary access card issued to Mr. Tyler should be temporarily deactivated until further notice. I closed my eyes for 3 breaths and said a thank you in my head, to Chloe for the speed, to myself for being prepared, to life for sometimes putting the right person in the right place at the right time. When the wheels kissed the runway, I opened my eyes and tightened my grip on the bag strap. A chapter would be closing very soon. Lauren was waiting at arrivals and hugged me hard. Her grapefruit blossom perfume as familiar as a thin blanket. Let's go, she said. We can stop for a new lock set if we need to. An ice cream. One or the other, or both. Both, I said, with the peculiar smile of someone who's both lost and regained something. We got into a cab. The city slid backward, bands of light and tree shadows running like a rewound reel. At the building entrance I showed my card. The security guard smiled like always, but this time I stopped and held up my phone with Chloe's email on the screen. I'm Amelia. From now on, if someone named Tyler asks for a temporary pass, please call me. He nodded, voice firm. Yes, Ms. Amelia. The elevator carried us to 14. The doors opened onto the long familiar hall, quiet and smelling of polished wood. I took out the little key I'd kept as my private secret for months since I had the lock redone. The metal teeth chimed softly together. I slid the key in and turned. The deadbolt released with the smooth sound of something fitting exactly where it belongs. I opened the door. The apartment smell spilled out: books, soap, greenery. Lauren and I stepped in and switched on the lights. Everything was still there. The beige sofa, the orderly shelves, the patient snake plant. And yet the place felt different. There was a new light skimming the surfaces, gentle but distinct, as if the air had been through a fresh filter. I set my bag down and stood still to listen. The city outside. The fridge. My heartbeat slow and steady. Lauren made a circuit, checking the windows, the balcony latch, the mailbox. Secure, she said, looking up at me. Vanilla ice cream first or the lock first? Lock, I said. Ice cream is the reward. We pulled out the tool kit. The screws bit into wood with a crisp sound. Suddenly my phone buzzed. A new email, his name on the sender line. Tyler. Subject. You don't have the right. I opened it, one short line as brazen as a dirty fingernail dragged across a tabletop. You'll regret choosing to fight me. I stared at it for a few seconds, my mouth tilting. I forwarded it to Chloe with a note. Evidence of threat. Then I set the phone down. Out in the hall, an elevator stopped, doors opened, and measured footsteps thudded on the carpet before going quiet right outside my door. Lauren and I looked at each other. We both paused like two actors freezing mid-line. I drew a deep breath. The cold stone at the base of my stomach felt neat and sharp. Maybe it would be him. Maybe just a neighbor. But either way, I was ready, because this place was mine now, and I had decided to stand in the middle of it, straight-backed and calm, like the owner of a small piece of land finally restored to its proper name. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, close enough that whoever it was seemed to be leaning in to catch our breathing. Lauren and I stayed silent for a few seconds, then set our tools down at the same time. A key jiggled against the lock, a leftover habit, but the new lock swallowed the old key like it swallows a memory, mute and cold. A beat of silence, then a knock, hard, 3 even raps. Amelia, open the door. Tyler's voice spilled through the wood, pulsing with arrogance and strain. Quit the theatrics. Lauren stepped beside me, eyes asking. I nodded, backed up half a step to throw the second safety latch, then pressed my cheek to the door and kept my voice flat. You're not allowed to be here right now. Everything goes through the attorney. An attorney? He gave a small, scornful laugh. You're overdoing it. New lock? You think you have the right? Open up. I do have the right, I said slowly, each word tapping into the wood. Because the apartment is in my name. Building management has been notified. Your access card's been deactivated. Send all communication to Chloe Hart. You know the email. Outside, a long hissed exhale. You think you're smart, Tyler said, his voice dropping, more dangerous. Open up and talk like adults. You don't want the neighbors listening. Lauren pulled out her phone and whispered, I'm calling security. I nodded. Tyler knocked again, harder. Amelia. I slid the chain latch, cracked the door just enough to see. The steel link pulled taut like a tendon. Tyler stood there, shirt still creased, tie loosened, eyes veined red like someone who hadn't slept enough or had yelled too much. He pushed with his hand. The chain quivered with a faint ting. Don't, I said softly. The hallway cameras are on. He paused half a second, peered through the slit, eyes locking with mine. I saw something familiar and strange there. Scraped pride and a clumsy kind of confusion. You think you've won? He swallowed, mouth twisting. You can't cut me out of my life. That's my home. Your home? I echoed, almost smiling. That what you told the person who called me yesterday when you said you'd sold it? Which home is yours, Tyler? His eyes flickered. He started to speak, but the elevator whirred and firm footsteps approached. 2 security guards rounded the corner in navy uniforms, radios clipped to their shoulders. One I'd greeted earlier. Evening, Ms. Amelia. One nodded, then turned to Tyler. Sir, please step away from the hallway. Management has advised us only registered residents may remain on this floor. Tyler snorted, stepped back half a stride but didn't leave. I have a key. That key doesn't work anymore, I said. And if you keep standing here, I'll treat it as harassment. The guard stayed polite. Sir, please head to the lobby. If you have documents to present, You can speak with management during business hours. Tyler squinted at me through the gap, like he wanted to pierce the wooden chain and hook out my heart. All he hit was a flat, cold surface. He puffed his cheeks and exhaled. Fine, he said, backing up another step. We'll talk like adults. He turned and stomped down the carpet as if he wanted to leave dense. When the elevator shut behind him, I closed the door fully. The lock turning home made a crisp, satisfying clack, like biting into an apple. Lauren set her phone on the table, held her breath, then let it out in a half-laugh. That was tense, she muttered. But, did you see his face when the guard said, Amelia? Like a slap. I leaned on the door a moment, feeling the cold sweat stop. More slaps are coming, I said, reaching for the ice cream, scooping a big spoonful, letting the cold melt on my tongue. Sugar and cream softened my face, but my head stayed sharp like I just downed an espresso. Now let's finish the lock. We turned screws, seated the strike plate, tested the key. When the new lock sat flush in the wood, Lauren held out a fist. I bumped it. Done. I'll call Chloe. No, I'll send her the recording tonight. I'd been recording from the start. Tyler's voice ran like a black streak across the white wall of my phone. I sent the file with a note. He showed up at the door. Security intervened. One more thing, Lauren said, uncapping a marker. Inventory his stuff. List it, photograph it, seal it. I opened the closet and pulled out the sneakers Tyler loved to brag about. A white pair he'd waited 4 hours in line for. A red pair he called an investment. I snapped photos and labeled the box. Tyler Box 1 shoes. Lauren carefully wrapped his 2 company basketball trophies, the ones he called his evidence of achievement, in bubble wrap. I opened the desk drawer and lifted the pricey fountain pens he favored, each in its wooden case. We moved it all into fresh cartons, taped them clear, wrote names and dates. It felt like a farewell ritual. Not for a person, but for a noisy cloud that had hogged the space. Clink. I set the last frame at the bottom of a box, the wedding photo. The picture I'd revisited in my head last night was here. But now the white dress, the blue irises, and Tyler's smile up close felt unfamiliar, as if they belonged to someone already gone. Lauren ran a finger along the frame. Want to keep it? I'll store it, I said, closing the lid. Not trash. But not on display. By the time we taped the 7th box, the clock read 10:47. I emailed building management. Please schedule time for Tyler to retrieve personal items on date, with security present. They replied fast. We can do 3 p.m. Thursday under our supervision. I clicked agree. CC'd Chloe. Each click felt like driving another nail into a new door. Night dropped. The apartment lowered its voice. Lauren slept on the sofa under a thin lavender-scented throw. I stood on the balcony with a glass of water, looking at the windows across the way, glints of other lives. A man bending to kiss a child, a girl tying her hair, an older woman watering a small pot. I didn't feel sad. I felt precise. Like a hat size just right, like a map that matches the land. A sparrow perched on the rail, tilted its head at me for a second, then flew off. I drained the glass and went in. Before lights out, I looked around and teased, almost under my breath. House, from now on it's just us. We were up early. I brewed coffee. The soft bitter smell drifted through the kitchen. Lauren stretched. Today's agenda? 9 a.m. at Chloe's to sign a few authorizations, I said. Then the bank to remove his authorized user card and review transactions. Noon drop-off at building management with a copy of the title. Work in the afternoon. Tonight new curtains. I tilted my mouth. I'm ditching the gray. Good. And add a lavender pot. Lauren squinted. The kid you were promised it to herself. Chloe's office sat on the 18th floor of a glass tower. Lobby hung with an abstract painting blue as a lake after rain. Chloe greeted me with a short, firm hug and led me to a small conference room, setting a tab stack in front of me. I contacted the buyer last night. They've confirmed by email they'll demand their deposit back from Tyler. Here's the demand letter we drafted for them. I CC'd them. And here's the formal letter to Tyler. Cease and desist from interfering with title, notice of misrepresentation, and settlement conditions. Meaning. I flipped to a yellow tab. Chloe spoke slow and clear like teaching. 1. Tyler signs a quitclaim confirming he has no ownership rights. Title's already solely yours, but this shuts down any future tricks. 2. He repays the full deposit to the buyer within 7 days, with any interest. 3. He covers all legal costs arising from the unauthorized sale, including your fees for that mess. For no direct contact, everything through me. 5. Finances. Close joint accounts and split liquid assets by actual contributions. Prelim math. Your share is 82%. 6. No spousal support either way. 7. His pickup is scheduled with building management. You don't have to engage. 8. If he won't agree within 14 days, we file with a motion for a temporary restraining order. I skimmed eyes-catching tidy numbers and clean clauses like bricks in straight rows. Sounds very me, I said with a thin smile. Chloe's mouth quirked. Couple more goodies. I've lined up a process server for proper service. Asked management to witness the pickup. And this, she slid a page over, is your 48-hour checklist. Banks, cards, carrier, utilities, split anything still in both names. Save past payment proofs. Put a credit alert in place. Thanks, I said and meant it. I'd thought of some of it, but you need someone to run the artillery, Chloe winked. You're great at strategy. I'm the big guns. I signed the authorizations. The pen's scratch on paper sounded like scissors through new cloth. A light knock, Chloe's assistant poked in. Sorry, Tyler is in the lobby. Says he wants to see your client. Chloe didn't look up, just smiled like at an old story. Tell him all communication goes through me. If he won't leave, call building security. Thanks. My heart didn't speed up. Odd. Maybe because I'd seen that face last night through a narrow gap. Maybe because I had a wall of words behind me now. 5 minutes later, the assistant returned, shrugged. He left. Got a little loud, but security escorted him out. Another line for the log, Chloe murmured, jotting. Tyler attempted contact, denied. She looked up like a teacher. You good? Good. I capped the pen. Bank time. At the bank, we closed a tiny joint account we'd use for streaming fees. The teller, a woman with olive green nails, said, I'll flag any unusual activity. I thanked her. At the card desk, I removed Tyler as an authorized user, signed, and listened as the clerk read back. Effective now, that user cannot use this card. I nodded. Each action was a small clean cut through old rope. At noon I stopped by building management. The manager, a silver-haired woman with glasses on a chain, welcomed me with a professional smile warmed by a hint of kindness. We received your attorney's letter. Thursday 3 p.m. is set. 2 guards will be present. Would you like to be home? I'll be inside, but I won't participate, I said. Everything's boxed, 7 boxes. I'll number them. He's not allowed to remove anything outside the list. We'll check, she said, opening a thick ledger and writing in a neat hand. And here's your new access card. The old permissions are removed. Email us to update your visitor list. On the way back, Lauren swung into a curtain shop. We chose an ivory fabric, thin enough to let light pour in like milk and still keep privacy. An old memory surfaced, our curtain fight. He'd wanted dark, more masculine. I wanted bright. I had caved. Now I lifted the white fabric and just said, this one. The clerk smiled. Lovely. Lauren whistled. Welcome to the bright curtain era. Back home I opened email. A new message from an unfamiliar address. I'm the person who put down the deposit on your apartment. I'm sorry I believed him. If you need a witness, I'm willing. Ush. I replied thanks and CC'd Chloe. My phone buzzed. Tyler. I didn't answer. A text. If you win, good for you. But don't push me to the edge. I can't take it. Another. Talk to me. We used to love each other. Another. Nicole is asking. You want me to lose everything? I looked at the words like vines trying to curl around a trunk I just pruned. I forwarded them to Chloe. Manipulation escalating. That afternoon I went to work. I told building security someone might try to reach me in the lobby. They nodded. I sat, opened my laptop and slid into the office mix of keystrokes, soft background music, pantry laughter. Laura from next door, not Lauren, popped in. They're calling you the queen in the group chat, she teased. Heard you shut down a fire? I just closed a door, I said with a small smile. Work felt like swimming in body temperature water. Smooth, no resistance. At 4:30 reception pinged. A Mr. Tyler is in the lobby, says ex-husband, wants to hand over documents. I exhaled, stood, and went down with 2 guards behind me. Tyler stood there, fresh shirt, harsh cologne. He held out a white envelope. My documents, he said, trying to be mild. I don't want a scene. Thanks. Hand it over and leave, I said, not stepping closer. A guard took the envelope for me. Something twitched in Tyler's eyes like a fish jerking on a hook. Amelia, please, he dropped his voice. Don't make me the bad guy in front of everyone. I tilted my head. You're doing great at that without me. I turned away. Behind me he spat a curse, and the guards, polite and firm, walked him out. In the elevator mirror I saw 2 faint pink bands on my cheeks. Adrenaline's blush. I laughed without sound. That night, Lauren and I hung the new curtains. The last light poured through the fabric, a milk-white wall that made everything in the room softer breathing. We put on an old playlist from our early post-grad days. Lauren danced, holding the drill like a mic, singing off-key and happy as a kid. I sat on the floor, back against a chair, head on my knees, listening as the room settled into itself. When we finished, we killed the overheads and left the corner lamp warm. Pretty, Lauren said. Pretty in the right way. You see it. I see it. I closed my eyes a second. Tomorrow will be fine. Tomorrow came with a short email. Service completed. Tyler accepted delivery at 8:12 a.m. Chloe added. Opposing counsel is Victor Hahn, pretty tough but professional. They propose a Friday settlement meeting. Friday, I sat across from Tyler in another conference room. Not Chloe's, Victor's. The space was pale gray. The art looked like silent sheet music. Tyler was early or had been there a while. He avoided my eyes, busy on his phone. His lawyer, Victor, salt and pepper hair, a face weathered like limestone, opened a notebook and smiled politely. Thanks for coming. Let's keep this civil. Civility is our specialty, Chloe said, sweet as sugar, sharp as a blade. She set a slim packet before her, one before Victor, and laid a pretty pen just so, like staging. Here's our settlement proposal. You've read it. Victor flipped pages, nodding slowly. Some of these terms are strict. No stricter than the law. Chloe smiled, eyes not smiling. Your client attempted to sell property he doesn't own. Luckily, nothing was recorded. We're helping him avoid a public civil suit. The terms reflect costs and responsibility. Victor glanced at Tyler. Tyler, anything you want to say to Amelia? It sounded humane, it was tactical. Tyler looked up, gave me a glance too brief to count. I'm sorry, he said, like someone had coached him. I rush things. Nicole. He stopped, remembering that name is acid now. I needed money. I thought. You thought I wouldn't know, I said evenly. Or if I did, I'd stay quiet. Like before. Victor laced his fingers. We're here to solve, not blame. On the deposit, Tyler can return it in 10 days. 7, Chloe cut in. With proof of source. As for legal fees, Victor continued, we propose splitting. Is that a joke? Chloe tilted her head. Those fees arose from your client's unilateral conduct. Ms. Amelia didn't create this. Victor paused, one brow lifting, a concession. All right. Tyler will pay a fixed amount, not to exceed. We have the number. Chloe slid a sheet over. Fees to date and projected close. Lower than what a court might award if we litigate and seek fees. Victor read, exhaled, nodded like a man swallowing a bitter fact. Tyler looked at the figures as if in a foreign language, face gone pale. And the apartment, Victor said. The quitclaim, let me see the draft. Here, Chloe handed it over. Signature and notarization within 3 days. 3. Tyler blurted, voice cracking. I can't. 3. Chloe repeated, steady. You signed once without reading. This time read slowly. Then sign. Victor motioned him quiet. Fine. I'll review with my client. He closed the file. We'd like to add mutual non-disparagement on social media. Agreed, Chloe said without pause. And add, no direct contact. He texted, don't push me to the edge. That's the context. All contact through counsel. Victor nodded. Done. He rose and offered his hand. Thank you. We'll send a formal response by 5 p.m. tomorrow. Tyler stood last. Only then did he look at me for a heartbeat longer, as if searching for a crack in the ice. There wasn't one. He pressed his lips together and turned away. When the door shut, Chloe dropped her shoulders to the chair back just a hair, like setting down a stone. Good. I'll sign. Victor's a realist. And Nicole? I asked, surprised her name now felt like a clothing brand. Not relevant, Chloe shrugged. Unless she lends him the money. Thursday afternoon, Tyler came to collect his things. I stood in the kitchen with the door cracked and the chain on. 2 guards flanked me. Tyler walked the hall and looked at the labeled boxes. He paused at the shoes box, opened it, let his hand skim the red pair. Then he looked around, new white curtains, a painting I'd moved, the snake plant still green. In his eyes something flickered, regret, maybe jealousy. You changed the curtains, he said, banal and not. Yep. I nudged the door a bit closer. He tried on a light smile. You know, I think we once, he couldn't find the word. Never mind. Let's get this done. He reached for the next box while security checked the list. Passing the bookshelf, he stopped at a novel he'd given me years ago. Flipped the back cover as if a miracle might fall out. Nothing. He looked up, met my eyes through the gap, and this time I saw something true. Tyler isn't a monster. He's a man who chose the short road and told himself it was straight. That doesn't make the wound he caused lighter, and it doesn't refund the hours I wasted. He signed the inventory and rolled the boxes away. The tiny wheels whispered on the carpet like an apology. When the elevator shut, I counted to 30, then exhaled hard. A guard nodded. All set. The other smiled. Nice curtains, ma'am. I laughed. Thanks. The next afternoon, Victor's email landed on time. We agree in principle. Attached is a lightly revised version. We accept the legal fee amount. Deposit will be returned within 7 days. Quitclaim to be signed Monday. Chloe replied. Accepted. Then privately to me. Legally, the ship has sailed. Now it's paperwork. That night, Lauren brought a lavender plant. We set it on the sill where the sun hits most. I brushed the slender leaves. A faint scent rose like a small word. Welcome, I whispered. Lauren opened wine and poured 2 glasses. To you, she said, raising hers. To boundaries. To new curtains. To lavender. To the right to say no, I finished. We clinked. The red flashed like a quiet ember. Later, I wrote an email to myself titled, Things Not to Forget. I typed, don't forget how he laughed on the phone when he said, enjoy that. Don't forget how it felt to tape the 7th box. Don't forget the elevator doors closing behind him. Don't forget how calm you were when you said, everything through the lawyer. Don't forget that you can stand alone in this kitchen and hear the fridge and know it's music. I paused, added. But also don't forget that May by the river when we ate ice cream and laughed till our sides hurt. Not to regret it. Just to know the warmth had an expiration date, and that's right. I sent it. My inbox pinged, my letter to myself sitting there like a seed set down. Monday morning, Tyler signed the quitclaim. Chloe sent the scan. His signature trembled slightly at the end. Done, she texted. A big chapter. I got to the office early, bought a butter croissant, bit down, listened to the crust shatter. I thought about texting Lauren. Done. Before I could, a message flashed from an unknown number. A name slicing across my vision like a sharp silhouette. Nicole. I opened it. One short line. We need to talk. I didn't know I was being lied to. If you're willing, I'd like to meet privately. I stared at the words like a path opening behind a hedge. Lauren texted at the same time. Done yet? I'm bringing waffles. I replied. Done. But there's one more thing. I sent her a screenshot of Nicole's text. She shot back instantly. If you meet, I'm coming. Public place. To listen, not to argue. I exhaled and thought of the little garden behind Café C. The basil smell, the water trickle. I typed to Nicole. We can meet at Café C. 4 p.m. today. Conversation only. No recording. No blam. Agree. 1 second 2 3. The dots appeared. Agreed, she wrote. I folded my phone and sipped my coffee. Outside the glass, a bright breeze ruffled the leaves like a hand patting my shoulder, just enough to remind me. Some parts remain unfinished, but the road has turned. I went back to my desk and opened my laptop. Work spread out like a new canvas stretched tight, waiting for the first strokes. I set my fingers on the keys, knowing the afternoon would bring a strange meeting, not to explain the past, but to set another stone on the new road, with the woman whose name once stabbed like a needle and who might now be just another person who got hurt. I smiled to myself, small enough for no one else to see, and began to type. Café C in the afternoon had that honey gold light that crawled across the wooden tables. In the garden out back, mint and basil shivered in the breeze and released a cool scent. The trickle from a small fountain tapped away at a person's patience. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table by the white-painted fence where I could see the entrance clearly. Lauren sat farther inside, pretending to scroll her phone, but our eyes met each time the door gave a soft creak. I set down a glass of black tea and noticed my hands were steady in a new way, as if I'd already picked the soundtrack for this afternoon. No recording. No blame. Just talk. I repeated the ground rules I'd texted. My phone buzzed once. On my way. Nicole wrote. She showed at 4 sharp, moving fast, like someone afraid she might change her mind. Cream blouse hastily tucked into pale jeans. Hair pulled high with a small polka dot ribbon. She was a few years younger than me. Mascara ringed her eyes lightly, but the fatigue shadows were plain today. She stopped short, looked around, saw me, then came over, set down her bag, and sat as if the chair might run away. "Thank you," she blurted, voice hoarse like she'd been crying. "I don't know where to start." "Start wherever's easiest," I said, sliding over a water I'd asked them to set aside for her. "And you can stop any time." She took the glass, tipped back a sip, and folded her hands tight. I believed him. I know that sounds like a lousy excuse, but I really did. She looked up at me, and there was a strange kind of courage in her eyes, the kind you see in someone willing to say their shame out loud. "He said he was separated. Said you were cold, that you didn't want kids," said, she swallowed, "said he wasn't respected at home anymore." I set the spoon on the saucer without making a sound. "When did you meet him?" "Last November." She blinked. Memory cracked open a door into a room that smelled like men's cologne. At a networking event. He's very good at making people feel seen. At first I thought it was just polite, but then he texted. Then lunch. Then the stories, every one of them sounded plausible at the time. He said you were still in the apartment together only because you hadn't split assets yet. Then he said he was going to sell the apartment, to wrap things up cleanly. "He told you it was his apartment?" I asked, keeping my voice flat as a fogged lake. "He said it was in both your names." Nicole hunched a little, embarrassed like a kid caught misspelling an easy word. "And he said he had a buyer. He showed off emails and texts and even the deposit coming in number." I didn't press him because I needed to believe he was doing the right thing. I needed that belief so I wouldn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing. That line skimmed across my vision like a bird cutting through eye level and rising. I set my palm lightly on the table edge. "Why did you ask to meet me, Nicole?" She opened her bag, took out a brown envelope and set it down. "Evidence. Text, screenshots, dates and times, what he told me and what he told the buyer. Some audio recordings. I know you said no recording for us, but these were made earlier, when I started to get scared. I'll give them to you if you want to use them." She paused, eyes tipping down. "And I'm sorry. I looked at the envelope the way you look at something that has both weight and warmth. We'll review them with counsel. And I accept your apology." I let out a long, light breath. "Do you know what he used the deposit money for?" Nicole bit her lip. "Some of it paid card debt. Some of it bounced around, saw it in his bank history, and I lent him a bit. He said he'd pay me back when the money landed. And," she shot a quick look up like courage might evaporate if she hesitated, "he asked me to wire a deposit for him because his bank had a fraud hold. I did one transfer. Small. But I did it." A small needle pricked under my ribs, not jealousy, but a kind of maudlin pity for all the women who've been taught to trust men's technical glitches. "I didn't say that." I asked. "When did you see him last?" "Last night," Nicole said immediately. "He came to my place. He was angry that I wanted to meet you. He said I was betraying him." I started recording when he began slamming the table. She leaned in and lowered her voice as if the basil leaves might overhear. "I'm scared." But I'm also scared I'll keep being wrong if I don't stop now. I nodded. Would you like me to recommend somewhere to talk safely about what you've just been through? A counselor or a support group? No charge and no judgment. The swerve surprised her. Then she nodded quickly, small. I think I need that. We sat quiet for a bit. A server set down a plate of butter cookies I hadn't ordered. Lauren's text, from the kitchen, made me smile. I slid the plate toward Nicole. She broke off a small piece and ate it like someone who can't remember the last solid thing they swallowed. I have a question, she said, tentative. How are you this calm? If it were me, I'd have smashed something. Because if I smash things, I'm the one who has to clean it up, I said, not joking. And I have too much to build to spend time cleaning up messes other people should be paying for. I lifted my tea. Also, I have a good lawyer and a friend who knows when to buy new curtains. Nicole looked at me. Her mouth twitched into a thin, sad smile. I hope I can learn some of that. She pulled papers from the envelope and pushed them toward me. This is a statement I'm willing to sign if needed. I asked a friend at a notary office how to write it. I'll testify if the court needs me. I don't want anyone else to step into this trap, including me. We ended the meeting on short lines. Thank you. Take care. Send me your available times to sign in front of a notary. Phrases that held one another up like planks fitted into a bridge over cloudy water. When Nicole left, Lauren finally came out, lifted a basil leaf to her nose, sniffed and let it fall. She's sincere, Lauren said. Not a question. Yeah. I slid the envelope into my bag, cool and rounded like a river stone. And honestly hurt. That night I sent everything to Chloe. She replied at the speed I'd come to expect. Gold. A minute later. I'll book Nicole's notarization for tomorrow. I'll draft an affidavit. We'll back up the audio, transcribe it, and timestamp it. I'll also share copies with opposing counsel. As a gentle reminder. Gentle in your way. I texted back with a coffee cup emoji. They might experience it as a rap on the head. Next morning, a tiny transfer showed up in my banking app. $1 from someone named H, the buyer, with the memo test for refund channel. I screenshotted it to Chloe. They're starting the recovery flow, she answered. Tyler will have to run. And when people run, they collide with the truth. Tyler did start running. His lawyer emailed in a silky tone. Our client is committed to transparency. Chloe answered with 7 concrete demands and a closing line like a door bolt. If any term is breached, we will immediately seek a restraining order and file supplemental civil claims. I read those exchanges feeling like both audience and character. I was present, affected, but no longer the one holding the megaphone, and the relief felt almost luxurious. Meanwhile, ordinary life slipped back in. I went to work, took meetings, wrote reports, wandered the grocery store and found bunches of freshly cut rosemary to tuck alongside the lavender on the windowsill. Their scents mingled into something like the kitchen's goodnight wish. I signed up for a Tuesday night pottery class. Clay smeared my hands, the wheel hummed under my palms, and my heart spun along at an easy rhythm. I taped a sheet to the fridge. List for Saturday farmer's market, buy flowers, finish half a book, call mom, air the quilt. Each line a little mooring post. Thursday afternoon, right on schedule. Tyler completed the refund of the deposit. Chloe sent the receipt with a line. That piece is done. Legal fees and paperwork remain. I looked at the outgoing number and felt nothing. Not joy, not glee, not hate. Just another door closing. That evening, Lauren brought over beet-topped pizza she loves. We ate and watched an old rom-com. When the lead sprinted through the rain, we both shook our heads. No one should run through the rain for someone who won't share the umbrella, we said. Friday morning, a text pinged from an unknown number. Ms. Amelia, I'm your upstairs neighbor. Saw Tyler sitting on the lobby floor for a long while last night. Seemed drunk. Security asked him to leave. Just letting you know. I forwarded it to Chloe and to Lucy, the building manager, and saved it. Thanks for the heads up, Lucy replied. We'll increase night patrols. I went to work with a new scent in my chest, not fear. Discipline, vigilance. At lunch, Laura from next door popped by with 2 green smoothies. Hey, she said. Want to hit the flea market this weekend? Heard there's a stall with beautiful vintage mirrors. New apartment, or new in the feeling sense, needs a new mirror. I laughed. Yeah, mirrors reflect the person looking. I need one that reflects new light. Laura winked. I'm writing that on a post-it. That afternoon, Nicole met Chloe at the notary. I didn't go, but she sent a photo. The affidavit with her signature and a round red seal. Under it, Nicole wrote, "He knocked on my door again. I didn't open. I called the building. They came." I sent her some hotline numbers and a hug in words. She answered with a teardrop emoji and a paper-thin heart. That evening I went home early and made a simple bowl of noodles. Scallions, egg, a splash of soy, under the white curtains. Mid-bite, an email from Victor. Proposed mutual no-contact order. Effective immediately. Chloe replied. Agreed. I e-signed. The click sounded like a seatbelt latching. I thought. Some straps choke you. Others keep you steady. When the court's received divorce filing packet arrived, I picked it up at the post office like a pre-ordered parcel. Thick envelope, heavy paper, black type. I set it on the table, poured water, sat across from it like from an old guest here to say goodbye. I opened it, read line by line, flagged the signature spots and sent it back to Chloe. Sealing the return envelope, I remembered addressing wedding invitations years ago. Licking the flaps, that faint sweet glue taste. This time I used a water sponge. No sweet, no bitter, neutral, clean. I smiled at the difference, how small details can carry the right weight. That weekend, Lauren and I hit the flea market. The mirror stall sat under the canopy of an old street tree. Frames in every shape, wood edges burnished by time. Glass slightly wavering like the surface of a well, reflections with a hint of years in them. I picked one just right. Walnut frame veined like the fingerprints of someone who'd passed through. Wrap it for me, please, I said. The seller, an older man with silver hair, nodded and rolled it in paper. This mirror shows the real you, he joked. If it shows you ugly, that's on you. I laughed. Perfect. Keeps me from blaming the mirror. We carried it home and set it a hair off-center from the shelf's line so the light would sweep the room differently than before. I stepped back and looked at the reflection. A woman with neatly tied hair, a white shirt and no wildfire in her eyes, just a durable kind of light. Lauren stood behind me and snapped a photo. Click. She held up the screen. Beautiful. Beautiful in the I am here way. On the day we signed the final settlement, a 10-minute shower burst and quit like one of the month's little jokes. I took an umbrella to Chloe's, signed where the yellow flags stuck out. Tyler wasn't there. He'd authorized Victor to carry his papers. I finished. Chloe squared the stack and tapped it lightly, like knocking on a door already closed. Congratulations, she said without performance. The rest is court administration. But practically speaking, you're on the other shore. Thank you, I said, and suddenly my eyes stung. Not from sadness. From something warm and soft as a freshly laundered blanket. Chloe put a small envelope in my hand. Invoice paid by their side. You're clear. I tucked it away unopened. That night I wrote myself another email, subject line things learned. No one gets to name my pain for me. No one gets to sell what isn't theirs. And no one gets to sell off my self-respect. Always read the paperwork. Always keep scans. Choose bright curtains. Buy lavender. Best friends are capital. A good lawyer is armor. And calm is the sharpest knife. The next day Nicole texted. I'm moving. I found a small place by the park. I'd like to buy you a coffee when I'm settled. I replied. Whenever you're ready. A moment later. I returned the bracelet he gave me. It felt heavy. I looked at that and understood that sometimes throwing away a heavy thing is the same as picking up a life. One weeknight near midnight, there was a very soft knock, very polite. The knock of someone who knows building rules but not the rules of another person's heart. I checked the peephole, not Tyler. It was H, the almost buyer, holding an envelope. I opened a sliver, the chain stayed taut. I was passing by and wanted to drop this off, he said, smiling awkward. Final refund statement. And, he scratched his head. A plant shop voucher. A weird thank you. But you kept me out of a worse mess. I smiled, took the envelope. Plants are never weird. I closed the door, opened the envelope and found the voucher lying neat as a pressed leaf. The next morning I went to the shop and bought a small miniature rose. Set it beside the lavender. The house's scent gained another layer. The layer of quiet, patient rebirth. A week later the court set the final date. Chloe texted. That's when we'll get the decree. I can appear for you, you don't have to go. But if you want to be there to hear the stamp hit, you can. I imagined the thunk of the stamp, the paper creasing under a clerk's hand, and realized I wanted to hear it. Not because I needed a sound to believe, I already believed. Because I wanted one last sound to end a score that had played far too long. The night before, I spread a freshly washed blanket, opened a window, let the wind lift the curtains like a hand fluffing the air. I brewed an oolong pot, poured a cup, sat down, and opened the notebook I'd started the day I met Nicole. On the cover I wrote a line that came to me in pottery class when the wheel spun too fast. Every freedom has technique. On the first page I wrote, tomorrow go hear the stamp. Lunch treat Lauren to noodles. Afternoon install a plant shelf. Night early bed. I underlined early bed. Then I turned off the light, climbed in, and lay on my side facing the window. Outside, the street lamp drew a thin blade on the wall, gentle. I dozed, listening to the apartment breathe, listening to myself breathe, and thought oddly about painting the kitchen cabinets green this fall. Not because someone once wanted it. Because now, if I want it, I will. And if tomorrow I decide I prefer pale yellow, I'll change it. I smiled to myself in the dark and let sleep arrive like a punctual guest carrying nothing but a ticket to keep going. A fine morning drizzle fell. Too light to wet your shoes, just enough to thin the air like a voile scarf. I got up early, brewed a pot of tea, and leaned on the windowsill watching tiny droplets settle on the lavender leaves, glittering like punctuation marks finally added in all the right places. I chose a white shirt, chestnut slacks, hair tied neat. Lauren texted. I'm picking you up at 8:15. Not letting you go alone. I answered. Yep. Bring the light as Clouds playlist. She replied with a sticker of a cat wearing a crown. The district courthouse sat in an old stone-clad building. The lobby smelling of paper and varnished wood. Benches lined both sides. Everyone murmured their own business like parallel streams running side by side. Chloe was already there, standing by a marble column, hair in a high-knot charcoal blazer. She spotted me and raised a hand. Here. I went over. She set a hand on my arm, gave a light squeeze, didn't say you okay? Or ready. Just dipped her head toward the file. Everything's on record. We're just waiting to be called. Lauren cleared her throat and handed me a small water bottle. One sip for your power voice. I laughed, took a drink, coolness spreading down my chest. Steady as someone who has just checked the deadbolt. Down the hall I caught sight of Victor in a dark suit with a briefcase, Tyler beside him. He'd gotten thinner. His jaw looked locked like someone who'd been awake too many nights. He didn't look at me, or he did and I didn't catch it. I neither avoided nor sought it. No eye contact. That was a term we'd signed. No direct contact. They're here, Chloe murmured. I nodded, no commentary. A court clerk in a blue shirt stepped out and called our names. The courtroom was small, low-ceilinged, the fluorescent lights a touch cold. A dark wood bench for the judge, the seal behind it. I sat on the right with Chloe, Victor, and Tyler on the left. For a few minutes I listened as other matters went ahead of us. A name change, a dispute over a parking space. Slices of lives queued up. When it was our turn, we stood and moved forward. Shoes kissed the floor in faint taps. The judge was a middle-aged woman with bright eyes and a voice neither high nor low. She turned the pages like a musician paging through a well-rehearsed score. The parties have reached a settlement under the attached terms. The court notes there is no dispute regarding ownership of the apartment. The court notes the earnest money refund has been completed. The court notes the mutual no contact and non-disparagement provisions. I ask, Ms. Amelia, do you confirm this agreement is voluntary, that you have read and understood it, and that you are not under duress? I confirm, I said. My voice sounded like a weather broadcaster reading the forecast, steady, audible, even. Mr. Tyler, do you confirm? The judge turned. Confirm, Tyler answered, rasping a little. I kept my gaze straight ahead, didn't glance over. Each of us had our own line to read on our own stretch of road. The judge nodded and signed the last page. She lifted a round seal, set it in the appointed spot, and brought it down with a dry, full thunk. A sound like the final brick dropping neatly into place. The court approves the settlement. The marriage between you is dissolved as of today's decree. I wish you both peace on your separate paths. She looked up. Her eyes carried no strange, cheap sympathy, only the confirmation of a fact. Done. We bowed our thanks. On the way out, Victor stepped to Chloe and shook her hand. Congratulations in the legal sense. Chloe smiled. Thank you. Send our regards to your client. And remind him of the terms. Victor tipped his head. I will. He gave me a brief look, the kind a person gives when the only proper greeting is silence. I returned a small nod. Tyler stood behind him, hands in pockets, thumb rubbing the pocket seam. A habit I knew too well. He twitched as if to step closer, but Victor set a light hand on his arm. They turned away. I watched for exactly 3 heartbeats, then looked down at my shoes and thought, the padding has been replaced, the steps will be soft. Breakfast, Lauren said the second the door closed. No pancakes and I'm suing. I laughed. At this hour it's lunch. Then lunch pancakes, she said, hooking her arm through mine. Chloe said, you two go. I'll head back to scan the decree and file it. Have a glass of white at home tonight. And Amelia. She paused, looked me in the eye. You did very well. I nodded, my throat went soft. Thanks, Chloe. She shrugged. Just doing my job. But I like this outcome. We walked out into air that had shed the rain. The sky looked like clean paper with the last gray tear-off removed. Lauren steered me to a nearby diner. She ordered butter pancakes with extra syrup and strawberries, and for me, sunny-side eggs and coffee. Eat like a winner, she said, eyes sparkling with a child's glee. I cut into the egg. The yolk ran like a small sun. So what's the kitchen plan now? Lauren asked, drawing a leaf in the syrup with her fork. I'm thinking green, I said. Then I think soft yellow. Then I think maybe just one accent wall and keep the rest white. I want light, not weight. Lauren nodded thoughtfully. One green patch as a nod to your past self. The white is space for the new one. I grinned. Every line out of your mouth is a post-it. Back home, I unlocked the door and set a copy of the judgment on the table, the way you'd set down a freshly developed photograph. I sat, touched the edge of the paper. The hollow feeling was gone. All that remained was the sense of a weight set in its proper place. I put on a soft piano piece and went to the kitchen to boil water. Lavender trembled at the window. Rosemary mingled with the steam. I looked at the cabinets. The white reflected the afternoon like a frosted mirror. We'll decide later, I told them and felt a little silly. Then the apartment answered with a small wooden creak that sounded like okay. My phone buzzed. Nicole? Congratulations. Victor told me no discussion, just, I wanted to say congrats. I'm starting my first therapy session this afternoon. I replied. Proud of you. She sent a bouquet emoji. I sent back a potted plant emoji. It felt like we'd moved from the language of 3 people tangled in a triangle to the language of 2 women holding trowels. I smiled. That afternoon I went to pottery class. The studio smelled of wet clay and water. The wheel hummed. The hairline crackle of drying glaze sounded like salt. The instructor, an older man whose hands stayed improbably clean despite touching clay all day, set a new lump in front of me. Shallow plate today. I dipped my hands, centered the clay, and eased it open with both thumbs, like opening a door without a lock. When the walls listed, I paused. The teacher said, don't rush to rescue it. Let it collapse. Then start over. I nodded, let it fall, gathered it up, rolled it smooth, set it down, opened it again. On the 3rd try, the plate took shape, surface satin smooth, rim lifting in a quiet smile. I scratched a tiny A on the bottom. He looked and nodded. Good. You've got the patience of someone walking a long road. I laughed. And I have a kitchen waiting for mismatched plates. That evening a bouquet arrived with no card. White flowers, heavy scent. I sniffed and felt it didn't suit the apartment, like expensive perfume worn at the wrong time of day. I set it on the balcony and texted Chloe a photo. No card. I'll hand it to security. She answered, good. Don't keep things without names. I thought about that line for a long time, not just about flowers. The next day I took a work-from-home day. In the morning I draped the furniture and called a painter for the kitchen wall. I chose a light spring green, not the deep shade Tyler used to want. The painter, a young woman with a short cut, mixed, rolled on the primer, then color coats. I watched, keyed up like waiting for a cake to set. When the last layer dried, it was as if the kitchen had gained another window. Outside light slid across the green in a soft band. Beautiful. the painter said, a little proud. I paid and tipped. Thanks for bringing the green in, I said. She smiled wide. Best kind of job. At noon I opened the laptop, answered emails, tweaked deck slides, listened to a faint drill from some apartment upstairs. It didn't annoy me. The drill sounded like roots working into walls. Lucy, our building manager, wrote, "Effective immediately, Mr. Tyler's guest card is blocked at all hours. Any violation of the no contact order will be escalated to police." I replied, "Thank you." Just 2 words, but I reread them 3 times like a charm. In the afternoon, H, the almost buyer, texted a photo. A monstera he'd bought with the voucher he'd given me, glossy leaves by his window. "My plant's alive," he wrote. "How are yours?" I snapped the lavender and the little rose and sent them back. "They're learning to share a space," I wrote. He sent a thumbs up and that was it. I liked the just enough of it. On the weekend, Lauren and I hit the farmer's market. We bought white tulips, a basket of oranges, a few avocados, some almonds. Lauren weighed a wicker basket. "This would look great in your corner." I nodded. "Get it." Back home we slid the tulips into a vase and set it on the shallow plate I'd fired yesterday. The glaze pooled thick and thin, the shape a little off, which was exactly why it was beautiful. "See?" Lauren propped her chin on her hand. "Everything imperfect is standing exactly where it belongs." I said, "Yeah, me too." My phone buzzed. An internal email. Senior leadership inviting me to present at the monthly strategy meeting. Topic: Managing communications risk in a crisis. I sat up a little straighter, heart beating fast in the good way. Not fear, anticipation. I replied, "Accept." Lauren hopped. "The Queen is back." I laughed. "Ban that title at work." Okay, how about head chef of the Green Wall?" She tried. "One more chance." I gave her a look. "Fine. Amelia stacks slides like bricks." I sighed in mock defeat, still smiling. The talk took place in a glass conference room overlooking traffic. I stood at the screen and spoke about scenarios and protocols, about not letting emotion pull a team off course, about the need for a buffer before decisions, how a seal only goes down when the paper lies exactly right. I ran a tabletop exercise. The room laughed in the right spots and went quiet in the right ones. When it ended, the COO said, "Very clear and composed." I dipped my head and pocketed the clicker like sheathing a paring knife. On my way back to my desk, Tom held up a hand for a light smack. "Welcome back." That evening I wrote Things Learned Part 2. Calm isn't coldness. Calm is knowing the exact warmth dough needs to rise. Best friends see your best version, even when you're wearing a hard hat. A good lawyer saves anger for where it works. Don't keep things without names. If a bouquet isn't graceful, leave it on the balcony. The balcony is for flowers of your own. Time moved on without fanfare. Tyler slipped off the stage of my life like a supporting character who'd finished his lines. Now and then Victor sent a curt email about a final document. Chloe answered with a signed attachment. No more threats or pleas. Maybe the no-contact order and those times security escorted him out had set the stakes in exactly the right places. Nicole texted less often, but each one marked a step. I slept 7 hours straight. I rebought an old book I loved. I changed my bank password. I answered with good. Proud of you. One step at a time. One Sunday night I spread old photos on the floor. Trips, birthdays, even the wedding. I picked a few with no Tyler. Me on a hillside, hair blown wild. Me laughing with my head back, eyes closed, ice cream in hand. The snake plant in first morning light. I framed them and hung them on the new green wall, deliberately a little off-center. Each picture was a small hole in the past where light could pass through. I stepped back and looked, and heard the apartment be quiet in the way only safe homes know how to be. Only one thing left undone. A short trip out of the city, not to run away, just to change the view. I booked a train to the coast, a small town 2.5 hours by rail, a guest house facing a stand of pines. Lauren insisted on coming the first day, then left me for 2 nights alone. To check if the pillows are soft enough, she said, solemn. I laughed. You're going for the seafood. Both, she said, unashamed. The town smelled of salt, line-dried shirts, and wind that dried hair fast. I walked the waterline, feet in sand, listening to waves nibble the shore like someone peeling the cover from a new book. I sat on a rock and watched a not-too-dramatic sunset, pale orange spread over the water like a thin shawl. I pulled out my phone and wrote myself a third email. Freedom isn't the absence of ties. Freedom is knowing what to tie yourself to: discipline, friends, the law, what you believe is right, and the habit of making dinner for yourself. I hit send, then turned the phone off and let the wind do its job. That night in the small hotel, I slept deep and dreamed I walked a wide field lined with wooden stakes marking a path, each stake bearing a name. Lauren, Chloe, Nicole, Lucy, and mine. I walked along the names, none a wall, all of them waypoints. I woke while the sky was still blue-black, cracked the window, and listened to the murmur of waves. I thought about the first day I stepped into the apartment with Tyler long ago, and understood that memories don't need erasing. They just need shelving with the right label on the right slot. Back in the city, I brought home a small bag of shells, rinsed them and set them in the shallow plate I'd made. The plate went on the kitchen counter. The green wall glowed. Lavender tilted her head. I sliced an orange, squeezed a glass of juice, sat down bare feet on cool wood. I looked around: white curtains, vintage mirror, new plant shelf, the familiar sofa, Tyler's boxes long gone. I said softly to no one but me, "We're here." Not a victory declaration. A welcome. That evening I called my mother. She asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am, Mom. I'm taking pottery. I painted a green wall. And I'm thinking about one more plant." She laughed in my ear. "You're still you. Good." We traded little news. Her orchid bloomed, the corner grocer moved the candy, the neighbor's cat demanded breakfast at 5. When we hung up, the apartment felt 1 degree warmer. Before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote the new week's plan. Monday, report. Tuesday, pottery. Wednesday, water plants. Thursday, call Nicole. Friday, dinner for Chloe and Lauren. My noodle dish that's getting better. I set down the pen. The notebook's coil made a tiny springy click. Lights off. The white curtains breathed. I dozed and reminded myself that if I change my mind about cabinet color tomorrow, I'll change it. No justification required. I've learned that not every decision needs a thesis-sized reason. Some things just need to feel right. The night passed gently. Now and then a car glided by, its lights sweeping the ceiling like someone pulling a long ruler across it. I dreamed I stood on a platform, the train arrived, the doors opened, I stepped in, the train moved. No one seeing me off, no one holding me back. Not sad, not jubilant, just the right motion at the right time. When the alarm rang, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and knew the sprint was over. Now came the steady run. I had good shoes, a clear route, water to carry, and a kitchen newly green waiting for breakfast. The simple thought made me smile. I rolled up my sleeves, lit the stove, cracked 2 eggs, snipped a few rosemary leaves. The smell rose and wrapped the room like an answer that needed no words. This is my life, and I'm living it. The days that followed moved at an even tempo. I woke early, cooked a simple breakfast, packed a lunch, went to work, came home to water the plants, read a chapter, and added a few lines to my things learned notebook. The big tear had been stitched. If I put my ear close, I could still hear the thread whisper over skin, but it didn't hurt anymore. Sometimes on my break, I opened the white curtains and green wall album on my phone and looked at the photo of the new kitchen corner. A quiet calm crept up my shoulders like a warm cat settling exactly where it should. One Monday morning, HR pinged my inbox. "Amelia, we'd like to discuss a new role on the Communications Risk Program." I read it twice, took a sip of coffee, felt my heart give an extra beat without stumbling. The conversation was crisp. They said I'd kept my cool in simulations, spoke clearly and firmly, and aimed my questions straight at the core. "We want you to lead the rapid response team next quarter," the director said. "Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the steadiest." I nodded and a soft yes popped out like a pen cap coming off. That afternoon brought a real mini-crisis. A negative post about the new product suddenly took off online, sprinkled with bad information. The team wobbled. I pulled everyone into a room and wrote 3 fat lines on the whiteboard. Verify, say it fast, correct the record. Then I delegated, who called the customers, who drafted the correction, who checked the numbers, who watched the spread curves. I slid my phone to silent and into a drawer, lifted my head every 10 minutes to ask, "What's new?" like a human metronome. 2 hours later, the wave receded. A junior teammate looked at me and whispered, "You make me feel like everything can be solved." I smiled. Because it can. In that moment I understood better than ever. Calm isn't a gift. It's discipline, it's muscle. My mother visited that weekend. She brought pale blue porcelain bowls chipped at one rim, my grandmother's old set. Perfect for congee, she said, circling the kitchen, running her palm over the green wall like smoothing a child's hair. She stared at the white curtains for a long moment, nodding. Bright house, bright people. We cooked sweet leaf soup. The bone broth and greens blended like two old melodies. That night she lay down on the sofa, sighed. This cushion is too soft, too easy to sleep. Then did sleep breath even. I tucked a blanket over her and stood in the kitchen doorway looking into the living room, feeling the apartment swell with one deep inhale, the kind called Mom is here. Sunday morning we went to the corner flower market. She chose white daisies. I added a few stems of eucalyptus. Passing a ceramics shop, I pulled her in to show off the plates I just fired. She lifted a white glazed one brushed with a faint green like misting rain, examined it, set it down, then hugged me without warning. You know, she said, voice trembling lightly with age, I don't worry about you anymore. I laughed and teased. You've always worried too much. She tapped my forehead. Then I'll practice worrying less. You practice living. We split the work. On Tuesday at class, the instructor taught a crack repair technique with clear resin mixed with metal powder. Not true kintsugi with gold, but a way to honor the break. Most people want to hide it, he said. But some cracks sit there like a story. I realized I didn't need to paint gold on the fracture. I only needed to clean it and let it rest. I chose a footed bowl with a split, filled it, let it cure. The line showed faintly like pencil. Neither flaunted nor ashamed. After class I carried it home, poured oolong into it, drank slowly, felt the dome of my mouth warm. I named it The Bowl That's in the Right Place. Midweek, Victor emailed. The file is 100% complete. No open legal items remain. My client will transfer to another city next month. I sent Chloe a confetti emoji. She shot back. Closed. Replied to Victor with thanks only. I typed thank you. And nothing more. There wasn't a flicker of glee. Partly because the fatigue had slid off. Partly because I felt something very plain. Plain as a bare wood table with no cloth. In the end, each person is just a person. I shut the laptop and treated myself to a ripe peach from the market. Juice ran down my fingers, I licked them clean and laughed alone at the small, silly joy of it. I decided to host a green wall dinner. I texted Lauren, Chloe, Lucy, the building manager who'd helped so much, H, the almost buyer, and after a pause, Nicole. I wrote, thank you dinner. Friday 7 p.m. menu. Handmade noodles plus salad. Dress code. Comfy. Bring something green. Lauren replied instantly. I'll bring pesto. Chloe. I'll bring a white. Lucy. I'm bringing fresh bread. H. A basil plant, green. Nicole took 10 minutes then. I'll bring a lemon tart. I looked at the screen and smiled. My heart settled a degree like a bowl of water set in the fridge, cool, not cold. Friday afternoon I mixed flour, cracked eggs, added salt, and kneaded until the dough was as smooth as the skin inside a wrist. I rolled it into sheets, cut into ribbons, dusted with flour, and hung them on a wooden dowel like thin scarves drying in imaginary sun. Lauren arrived early, put on music, minced garlic, and let it bloom in olive oil. So fragrant I almost scrapped the plan to eat bread dipped in oil instead. Chloe came, shed her blazer, and rolled up sleeves. A good lawyer knows how to pop a cork without giving the ceiling a bruise, she quipped. Lucy brought bread, H a basil pot, and Nicole last, cradling the tart like an apology. We ate standing in the kitchen for a while, a cheerful crew around a line. Then we sat. Wine chimed against glass like a tiny wind ensemble. I raised my glass and kept it very short. Thank you for being mile markers. Lauren called. To the green wall. Chloe added. To stamps in the right place. Lucy. To breathing curtains. H. To plants. Nicole smiled small, lifted her water. To sour things that can be sweet like tart. The table laughed. After dinner I washed. Nicole stood beside me to dry. We didn't say much. Suddenly she spoke. I apologized to myself. I tilted my head. She went on. I'd apologize to you. But yesterday I realized I had to apologize to the part of me that didn't trust my intuition. I'm relearning. I nodded. Slowly. No need to skip grades. She smiled, tired. It's the first time slow smells like mint. I pointed at H's basil. Water every other day. Don't overdo it. I'll try, she said, like making a promise to herself. When everyone left, the apartment held a gentle, unfamiliar blend: garlic, wine, flour, mint, lemon peel. The smell of good food and good people. Standing at the sink, warm water running, my fingers brushed the lip of the bowl that's in the right place, and I understood. Nights like this would be the markers on my new map. I opened the window and let the night drape itself over the room like a thin shawl, and stood a bit, deciding what to do with the leftover dough tomorrow. Ricotta ravioli? Or fettuccine? I smiled and booked myself a new dish. A quiet week. Then a small incident. At 8 p.m. on Wednesday, the building went dark. The hallway was black. Then the emergency lights flicked on. I opened my door and saw neighbors peeking out. Lucy walked briskly past with a flashlight. Transformer issue in the basement, she said. The techs are on it. I set a few candles on the table, poured water, took a couple of glasses out to the hall. A little girl from downstairs sat on the steps hugging a bear, eyes wide. I sat beside her, blew a thin ring of candle smoke and asked, "Do you like stories?" She nodded, as small as a blink. I told a short tale about a clay pot that could sing, no idea where that came from. She giggled. Power returned after 15 minutes. The hall brightened and everyone oohed like watching fireworks. My neighbor across the way nudged me. "Those noodles smelled amazing the other night." I bowed my head. "Come by sometime." I closed the door and realized I'd planted another small stake. Knows the neighbor across the hall. One morning at month's end, the postman brought a thin envelope. I recognized Victor's handwriting in the corner. Inside was a single sheet. "My client would like to return this book. He says it belongs to you." Clipped to it was the old paperback Tyler had once given me. I flipped the back cover and saw my own hand, written to myself years ago. "For rainy days, when you reach page 57, make tea." I stood still a moment. No flare of fire, no rainfall of grief. Just an old paper clip, an old paper smell, and an old person far away. I slid the book onto the shelf among the things I love now. Not on top. Not at the bottom. In the middle, where ordinary things belong. I decided to replace the dining tabletop, not because I needed to, but because I wanted grain that ran with the light. A small woodshop built it to size and delivered in 2 weeks. Lauren and I installed it together. 4 bolts, shims, a coat of oil. We sat, set our palms on the surface, poured tea on the new wood, and murmured just enough. Lauren pulled out a box. A gift for the green wall era. Inside, a small ceramic wind chime, matte glaze. "For the balcony door," she said. "When the wind moves, it'll say, 'This is home.'" I hung it. A light breeze passed and it chimed once, like the sound of someone stroking a sleeping dog. As the season turned, I changed the living room rug, laundered the curtains and wiped the windows. I sat and wrote letter 4 to Amelia in a new season. If someone asks, "What's the secret?" Tell the truth. There isn't one. There's a to-do list. There are friends who text at 8:15. There's a lawyer who bills the right fees. There's a meal cooked with care. There are 7 hours of sleep. There's small talk with a neighbor. There's a cracked bowl left in peace. There are white curtains. There's a green wall. And there is a person who believes everything necessary can be learned. I sent it to myself and laughed at how my inbox was becoming a private post office. One lunch hour I cut through the park to a meeting, passing a maple in mid-change. The wind shook down a few leaves, falling as if there were no story behind them. I stopped beneath the canopy and thought about the old wedding ring in my drawer. I hadn't worn it in ages. I took it to the little jeweler on the corner and set it on the counter. The old craftsman lifted it under the light. "I want to make it into a bookmark," I said, surprising myself. He smiled gently. "We can. Thin it, bend it, polish it. It'll hold page 57 if you like." I burst out laughing. A week later I picked it up. The ring was now a slim dolphin hugging the page, strangely beautiful. I opened the old novel, clipped it to page 57, made tea and sat down. No ceremony. Just a small act returning an object to a different use. I texted Lauren a photo. She screamed in text, "Oh my God, genius." By year's end I proposed a small program at work. Staying calm in a crisis. I wrote the materials without telling my own story. Just processes, questions to ask, templates prepped for a bad day. 10 people came to the first session, 20 to the second. A junior came up to thank me. I took some of this home. When my parents started to argue, I asked, "What's our goal?" And everyone softened. I smiled. "Remember to swap crisis for dinner there." She laughed and walked out, leaving a warm drop inside me. Nicole sent a photo. Her new kitchen, small corner, white wall, a few pots. "I have a green wall like yours," she wrote. "Lighter. I call it salt green." On the table was a porcelain bowl I recognized. The bowl that's in the right place, the copy I'd given her the other day. She'd poured soup into it. I could almost see the steam through the screen. I wrote back, "Eat it hot before it cools." She answered, "Yes." I set down the phone, looked at my own kitchen, and smiled that these kitchens dotted the night like signal lamps. I didn't see Tyler again. Sometimes his name skimmed past in a CC on some old list, then vanished. One afternoon walking home, I spotted a man in the distance with his gait, shoulders tight, left hand in a pocket. I stopped for half a beat, then laughed when he turned, another stranger in a blue coat. I kept walking. Near home, the ceramic chime on my balcony rang softly. I looked up and waved at myself. On the last night of the 5-part, I'd been quietly writing to myself. I opened my notebook and wrote letter 5, an open end. If one day someone calls and tears the air with a sentence, what will you do? You will stand still, breathe, call the right person, write the right letter, close the right door, turn on the right light, cook the right dish, sleep the right number of hours, and brew tea in the morning. If one day no one calls, you'll still get up, still water the plants, still work, still smile at the neighbor, still read to page 57 and make tea. No single event defines you, only the small habits you choose. I signed it, A. I shut the notebook, switched off the living room lights, and left the kitchen light casting a thin honey band across the green wall. I passed the white curtains, palmed the new tabletop, leaned my shoulder in the doorframe for a second, listened to the wind chime touch itself. I went to the bedroom, pulled up the covers, laid a hand on my stomach, and felt the old cold stone long since melted into water, gone somewhere I didn't need to know. Outside, the night stood still like a friend keeping watch. I closed my eyes and before sleep took me, said quietly inward, "Tomorrow, if I feel like it, I'll paint a pale yellow stroke on the cabinets." No one answered. No one needed to. I smiled in the dark, listened to my heart, steady, simple, useful, and let the night carry me toward morning.